Hey there, welcome to my channel. I'm here to help you relax tonight. Though before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Let's enjoy the story. My name's Daniel. I'm 27 now, and I swear what I'm about to tell you actually happened. If you're watching this, just know, the whole time you're hearing my voice, there's a guy out there who already knows every word I'm saying. He's heard it all before. Through the wall, through the vents, through my phone probably. Because that's how this started, with a neighbor who knew way too much. The first time I heard his voice inside my apartment, my front door was still chained shut. I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed. It was 1 in the morning, everything quiet except for the cheap fan rattling in the ceiling. I spit, turned off the sink, and froze. Someone was humming. Not outside, not in the hallway, inside my apartment. Just a low, lazy hum, like someone was wandering around, bored. A tune I knew but couldn't place, like something from a commercial. It was coming from my living room. My first thought was, I forgot to lock the door. I walked out slowly, toothbrush still in my hand, heart punching my ribs. The lights were still on in the hallway, my TV off, no movement. I turned toward the front door. The chain was still on, the deadbolt too. No one in the apartment, no open windows, nothing. Then I heard it again. The humming, now coming from the other side of the wall, not the hall side, the wall I shared with my neighbor, the guy who had moved in a couple weeks before. I walked up to the wall and pressed my ear against it, trying not to freak out. The humming stopped. Then, clear as day, like his lips were near my ear, this calm male voice said, "Hey, Daniel." I jerked back so hard I hit the coffee table. I didn't say anything. I just stared at that beige wall like it was a person. The voice came again, soft, almost amused. "Relax, Nan. Just saying hi." I knew that voice. I'd heard it maybe 3 times in the hallway. My new neighbor, the guy in 4B. His name was Aaron. I moved into that building because it was cheap and close to work. It was one of those long, narrow old places, 4 floors, about 8 units per floor, all with the same basic layout, thin walls, creaky doors, and a weird smell like someone once smoked 1,000 cigarettes there and the walls were still holding on to it. I didn't know anyone in the city when I moved in. No family close by, no real friends besides coworkers I barely talked to outside the office. So when I met Aaron my second day there, I was actually happy to see a friendly face. He was maybe early 30s, average height, brown hair, always in a hoodie and sweatpants. He had that vibe of someone who's always just gotten out of bed, but he smiled a lot and made easy small talk. First time I saw him, I was struggling with a box of dishes in the hallway, and he opened his door right as I almost dropped it. "Need a hand?" he asked. Yeah, thanks." He grabbed the other side of the box, and we got it to my door. "You just move in?" he said. "Yeah, 4A." He pointed at his own place across the hall. 4B, I'm Aaron." We shook hands. His grip was firm, but not weird, nothing off about him. He had that friendly neighbor thing going on, like the guys who'd lend you sugar or something. Over the next week, I'd see him here and there. Coming back from work, he'd be sitting on the stairs scrolling on his phone. Late at night, grabbing packages from the lobby. In the laundry room, leaning against the washer like he had nowhere else to be. He always said hey. He always remembered little things I told him. "How's the new job going, man? You still doing night shifts this week? You said your mom's in Ohio, right?" It felt nice at first, like someone was actually listening. I didn't realize yet just how literally that was true. The first weird thing happened about 10 days after I moved in. It was a Thursday night. I'd ordered Chinese food, and I was sitting on my couch, eating straight from the container, watching some random crime documentary on my laptop. Nothing heavy, just background noise. I got tired around midnight, paused the video, and left my laptop open on the coffee table. The crime doc was about some guy who'd broken into people's houses and just watched them sleep. Never stole anything, never hurt them. He just wanted to be there, to see them. It creeped me out enough that I double-checked my door that night before bed. Deadbolt? Locked. Chain? On. Handle? Turned it 3 times just to be sure. I went to bed, put a podcast on low, and finally knocked out around 1 a.m. When I woke up the next morning, my laptop wasn't on the coffee table. It was on the kitchen counter. Open. The screen was on my email inbox. I don't drink. I don't sleepwalk. I remembered lying on the couch, closing my eyes for a bit, and then getting up to go to bed. I remembered turning off the lights. I did not remember getting back up, walking over, and moving my laptop. Still, I shrugged it off. Maybe I did it half asleep, whatever. But then I noticed something else. My email was scrolled halfway down, opened on an old message from my mom, where she was talking about my dad and how he left when I was 10. That email was buried, like way down. I hadn't looked at it in months. I stared at the screen, feeling a weird little knot twist in my stomach. I hadn't opened that. I knew I hadn't. I'm the type of person who leaves 1,000 unread emails sitting there because I can't be bothered. I hadn't scrolled like that. The building didn't have cameras in the hallway, at least not that I saw, and nothing in my apartment looked messed with. Wallet was still there, keys, everything. Still, I went straight to the door. Deadbolt, locked. Chain, on. No sign of forced entry. I told myself, you're being paranoid. You were tired. You probably opened it yourself. Maybe you were thinking about your family. Maybe the crime doc got to you and your brain went on some weird emotional spiral. That explanation worked until that night. So, back to the humming. Back to me standing in my living room at 1 in the morning with a toothbrush in my hand, listening to my neighbor say my name through the wall like he was inches away. I swallowed, throat dry. Hey? Didn't mean to freak you out, Aaron said, his voice muffled but clear. Walls are thin, man. Didn't think you'd hear me. You were humming, I said. Yeah, sorry. You watching something? Nah, just getting ready for bed. He laughed softly. Late for bed? You always stay up this late? I hesitated. He wasn't wrong. I did usually go to bed around this time. I told him that once in passing when we were talking about work schedules. Yeah, I said. Pretty much. Cool, he said. Same. Guess we'll be hearing each other a lot. That last line came out a little strange. I couldn't tell why. Maybe it was just the situation. It felt too intimate, talking through the wall like that in the middle of the night. All right, night, I said. Night, Daniel. I walked back to my bedroom, but it took me a while to fall asleep. My brain kept replaying how close his voice had sounded, like there was nothing between us. No brick, no plaster, just air. I told myself, it's an old building, sound travels, you're overthinking it. Then, over the next few days, I realized it wasn't just sound that was traveling. It was information about me. It started small. One Saturday afternoon, I was on the phone with my mom, pacing back and forth in the living room. We were talking about Thanksgiving plans, and I told her I probably couldn't afford to fly back this year. Rent, bills, everything. I said, honestly, I'm just trying to keep my head above water. After the call, I grabbed my trash to take it down to the chute at the end of the hall. As I stepped out, Aaron opened his door at the same time, holding a trash bag. Hey, he said, smiling, same timing, trash buddies. I forced a laugh. Guess so. We walked down the hall together, and halfway there, he said, dude, if you ever need anything, seriously, just ask. I know how it is, trying to keep your head above water out here. He said it just like that, trying to keep your head above water. Same phrase, same casual tone. I froze for half a second, but kept walking. "Yeah," I said slowly. "It's rough." He looked at me sideways. "You all right?" "Yeah, just long day." He nodded, like he understood, like we were close or something. It bothered me for hours, that exact phrase. I replayed the phone call in my head just to be sure. I knew I'd said those words. I knew I'd been in my living room when I said them. And our wall was right there. I told myself it was just a weird coincidence. People say stuff like that all the time, right? Except then it happened again and again. One night, I was watching some random YouTube video, and I said out loud to myself, because, yeah, I talk to myself sometimes, "Man, I hate this chair." The chair was this cheap desk chair I'd gotten off Facebook Marketplace. It squeaked every time I moved. Next morning, I opened my door to go to work, and there was a folded note on the floor. No envelope, just a white piece of paper. On the front, 4A, in sloppy, all-caps handwriting. My stomach dropped a little. I opened it. Inside, it just said, "If you hate the chair, get a new one." No signature. I stood in the doorway, the hallway empty, my heart pounding in my ears. I looked over at Aaron's door, closed. I knocked, trying to act casual. A few seconds later, he opened up. Hoodie, sweatpants, sleepy eyes. "Hey man," he said, "what's up?" I held up the note. Did you put this at my door?" He squinted at it. "What does it say?" I read it out loud. "If you hate the chair, get a new one." He laughed. "Sounds like good advice." "Yeah, but did you write it?" He shook his head. "Nope, not me, man. Maybe someone else heard you complaining. Thin walls. Or maybe you drunk wrote yourself a motivational message." "I don't drink." He smiled like I'd made a joke. "Sure, you good, dude?" I wanted to push. I wanted to ask, how did you know I was talking about a chair? How did you know I said I hated it? But he was just standing there, relaxed, eyebrows raised, like this was all no big deal. Like I was the weird one for making it a thing. "Yeah," I muttered. "I'm fine." "Cool. Hey, I'm making pasta later. You want some? I usually make too much." "Nah, I'm good. Thanks, though." "Suit yourself," he said. "Don't let the anonymous chair coach freak you out." He shut the door, still smiling. I stared at the note for a long time before I crumpled it and threw it away. That night, I pushed my desk chair into the corner of the room and sat on the floor to use my laptop. I couldn't sit in it anymore. It felt like someone was watching me every time the cushion squeaked. Around week 3, the dreams started. They weren't nightmares in the classic horror movie sense. No monsters, no chases, no jump scares. They were worse because they felt so normal. In the first one, I dreamed I woke up in my bed and heard someone making coffee in the kitchen. Mug clinking, cabinet door opening, the soft, familiar hiss of the cheap coffee maker I'd bought from a discount store. Except, in the dream, I knew I lived alone. I got up, walked down the hallway, and saw a man standing with his back to me at the counter. Gray hoodie, dark sweatpants. "Aaron?" I said. He didn't turn around. He just said, "You left the chain off the door again." That was it. I woke up in a full-body sweat. I went straight to the front door. The chain was off. I remembered locking the deadbolt, but I could have sworn I put the chain on too. I always did. It was automatic. I locked it and stood there for a long time, hand on the metal, listening. Nothing. No humming, no TV, no footsteps. Just silence. The next dream was worse. In that one, I was standing in the hallway, face pressed to Aaron's door. I could hear myself talking inside. Not someone who sounded like me. Me. My voice. Same cadence, same little speech patterns, the way I drag certain words when I'm tired. I couldn't make out what I was saying. It was like listening to a conversation through a wall at a hotel, muffled, just out of reach. I knocked in the dream. The talking stopped. Then I heard footsteps. They came closer, then stopped right at the door. But the door didn't open. Instead, a whisper came through the crack, in my own voice. "Why are you outside?" I woke up standing beside my bed, heart racing, my hand gripping the mattress like I'd been about to pull it aside. I'd never sleepwalked in my life. I got maybe 3 hours of actual sleep that night. Stuff really started spiraling after I bought the camera. I guess that's what people do now when they feel like something's off. They buy cameras. I didn't have money for a full security setup, so I ordered a cheap little Wi-Fi camera off Amazon. It looked like a black plastic marble on a stand. I set it up on my bookshelf in the living room, pointed at the front door. It recorded motion clips and sent them to an app on my phone. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, just in case. First couple of days, it caught nothing but me going in and out, me walking past in my underwear, me forgetting I was on camera and eating straight from the fridge like an animal. Then came Sunday. Sunday is important because it's the day I stopped feeling paranoid and started feeling hunted. I was off work. I spent most of the day cleaning, doing laundry, taking the trash out. I saw Aaron twice, both times in the hallway, both times with him giving me that relaxed half smile. "Smells clean in there," he said when I stepped out with a bag of trash. "Yeah, deep clean day." "Gotta love it. Feel like a new man, right?" Something like that. That night, I went to bed around midnight. I checked the door, made sure the camera was on, checked the app, saw the little red dot that meant it was recording. I slept like crap, tossed and turned, kept waking up. Around 4 in the morning, I woke up to a notification buzz on my phone. Motion detected, 3:17 a.m. My whole body turned cold. I hadn't heard anything. I opened the app with shaking hands. There was a 19-second clip, saved with a little thumbnail showing my front door in the dark. I pressed play. The door was closed. The apartment was black except for the faint glow from the streetlights leaking through the curtains. For about 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the chain lifted, very slowly, like someone on the other side had slipped something through the crack and was raising it. Except the door never opened. The chain just slid up and clicked into its holder. Then, after about 3 seconds, it dropped back down. There was no hand, no tool, no shadow, nothing visible on the camera. Just the chain lifting by itself, hovering in the exact position it would be in if someone were locking it from inside, then dropping again. I watched that video over and over, heart pounding, mouth dry. It wasn't some glitch. The metal links swayed when they fell. It was real. Someone had messed with my lock while I was sleeping. Someone who wasn't actually opening the door, just testing it. I called the landlord as soon as it was light out. My landlord, Mr. Patel, was one of those always busy guys. Late 40s, nice enough if you caught him in a good mood, but usually rushing somewhere else. He met me that afternoon in the hallway outside my apartment with a ring of keys and a slightly annoyed expression. "So what exactly is the problem?" he asked, looking at the door. I pulled up the video and handed him my phone. He watched it, frowning, then handed it back. "Could be the chain is loose," he said. "These are old fixtures, maybe vibration." "Vibration from what?" I demanded. "It does that once at 3 in the morning and never again?" He shrugged. "Building shift, pipes, wind, who knows?" I stared at him. "You seriously think that's normal?" He sighed. "Look, Daniel, if you want, I can replace the chain, put in a new deadbolt too. But I don't think anyone is getting in. You're on the 4th floor. There's only one stairwell. Nobody has complained about break-ins." "What about people listening?" I asked. He gave me a blank look. "Listening?" "Through the walls or the vents. I swear, I keep hearing my neighbor talking like he's in my apartment, and he knows things he shouldn't know. You mean Aaron? He said. Yeah, 4B. Mr. Patel's face changed just a tiny bit. Not much, barely noticeable, but his eyes flicked toward Aaron's door. He's been here almost a year, he said. No complaints about him. Pays on time. Quiet. No parties. He smiled like that last part was a miracle. You're the first to report anything. So I'm just crazy, I muttered. I didn't say that. His voice softened a bit. Moving to a new place, new city, it's stressful. These old buildings make all kinds of noises. It gets in your head. But if it makes you feel better, I'll change the locks this week, okay? I nodded, not satisfied, but too drained to argue. As he was leaving, he paused and said, You know, if you don't like it here, you don't have to stay past your lease. Month to month after 6 months. Just keep that in mind. He said it like he was giving me good advice. It sounded more like, you might want an exit plan. A few hours after Mr. Patel left, I ran into someone else in the hallway. An older woman I'd never seen before. She was standing near the stairwell holding a small bag of groceries, squinting at her keys. Late 60s, maybe early 70s. Gray hair pulled into a low bun, thin with a slight hunch. Excuse me, she said when she saw me. Do you know which one is 4C? My eyes aren't what they used to be, and these numbers are so small. Yeah, I said, pointing. That one, right there. 4C was 2 doors down from me, past Aaron's place. Thank you, she smiled, then peered at my door. You must be the new boy in 4A. Daniel, right? I blinked. Yeah? I'm Mrs. Carter, she said. I live in 4C. Been here longer than anyone, she chuckled. Long enough to know all the wall's secrets. It was one of those sentences that would be kind of cute if the timing wasn't awful. I forced a smile. Yeah, these walls are thin. That's one word for it, she said quietly. Then her eyes flicked toward 4B. You making friends with your neighbor? I hesitated. Kind of. She watched my face like she was trying to read something in it. Don't tell him too much, she said. About yourself, I mean. Why? He remembers everything, she said. And sometimes he remembers things that haven't happened yet. I laughed nervously. I'm sorry? What? She blinked like she'd said more than she meant to. Never mind. Just old woman talk. You take care, Daniel. She went into 4C, fumbling with her keys, and shut the door. I stood in the hallway, skin crawling. Remembers things that haven't happened yet? It stuck in my head all day. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized I could hear the soft murmur of a TV through the wall. Not Aaron's wall, the other side, the wall I shared with 4C. Mrs. Carter was watching something, laughter track faint and distant. For some reason, that comforted me. It made the building feel normal, shared, not just me and Aaron on this weird mental island. I fell asleep feeling slightly better. That feeling lasted until the next afternoon, when I ran into Mr. Patel again while picking up a package from the lobby. By the way, I said, I met the woman in 4C, Mrs. Carter. She seems nice. Mr. Patel looked confused. Who? The older lady, gray hair, lives in 4C? He shook his head. 4C is empty right now. My stomach flipped. No, I literally helped her find the door yesterday. We talked in the hallway. He frowned. No one's renting 4C. The last tenant moved out 2 months ago, before you came. I haven't found a new one yet. He said it like he was sure. Not even a hint of doubt. I laughed, but it came out thin and wrong. Maybe she was visiting someone else. There's no one on the lease for that unit, he said. If someone's staying there, I need to know. I stood there, staring at him. Her name is Mrs. Carter, I said. She said she's been here longer than anyone. She knew my name. She knew about the walls. The walls? He said. Never mind. He studied me for a second, then said, You look tired, Daniel. Get some rest.
That night, I put my ear to the wall again. The 4C side. Nothing. No TV, no voices, no sound at all. Not even the hum of a fan or the creak of floorboards. I went to Aaron's wall. Silence there too. The whole floor felt dead. I went back to the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at my front door. My eyes drifted up to the chain. I remembered the video, the way it had lifted on its own, the timing. 3:17 a.m. I pulled up the app again. Motion detected 3:17 a.m. Motion detected 3:18 a.m. I'd only watched the first clip before, the one with the chain. There was another one right after it. My heart jumped. I clicked the second video. This time, the angle was slightly different. Same room, same front door, but there was movement in the bottom right corner. Me. It was me. Walking across the living room in the dark, moving toward the door. The only light was from the street, this soft gray glow across the floor. My face was just a shadow, but the outline was unmistakable. My height, my hair, the way my shoulders slumped. I watched myself pause at the door. My hand reached up and touched the chain. I lifted it, held it there for a second, then let it drop, and I walked back toward the hallway and out of frame. The clip ended. In my bed, my pulse roared in my ears. I had no memory of getting up. None. I would have sworn on anything I stayed in bed that night. But there I was, clear as day, walking in my sleep, touching the chain, testing it.
I watched it again, zooming in, looking for anything that didn't match me, some detail that would prove this wasn't real. But the more I looked, the worse it got. Because the longer I stared at that grainy little version of me, the more it didn't look like sleepwalking. It looked deliberate. My steps were slow, but the way I moved, it wasn't that floppy, loose kind of movement you see in people who are half awake. My shoulders were squared. My head was up. I walked straight to the door like I knew exactly what I was doing. And when my hand touched the chain, I swear, just before I let it drop, my head turned toward the camera. The camera had no night vision, so my face was just a dark oval. But I had the sickening feeling I was looking right at myself, watching myself. I backed out of the app, dropped my phone on the couch, and sat there in the dark, breathing too fast. That's when there was a soft knock on the wall. Aaron's wall. 3 slow taps. I didn't answer. After a few seconds, his voice came through, casual, like it was the middle of the day and we were just neighbors chatting over a fence. "You ever feel like you're watching the wrong version of yourself?" he asked. I stared at the wall, unable to move. He laughed quietly. "Sleep tight, man." The next morning, I called out of work. I told my boss I was sick, which wasn't entirely a lie. I felt off, like my skin didn't fit right. Like my apartment was a size too small, and the air inside was old and stale. I sat at the tiny kitchen table with a notebook and tried to write everything down, every weird thing since I'd moved in. Laptop moved, old email opened, humming in the wall. Note about the chair. Dreams of Aaron in my kitchen. Dreams of me at his door. Mrs. Carter in 4C. Landlord swearing 4C is empty. Chain lifting on camera. Me walking to the door, touching it. Aaron knowing phrases I'd said alone. Writing it all down should have made it easier to see what was real and what was overthinking. Instead, it made something else obvious. The closer I looked, the more it all seemed to circle around one thing: information. Someone or something knew way too much about me. What I said, what I did, what I thought about, even what I dreamed about. The line between what happened in my head and what happened in my apartment was starting to blur. And Aaron, he was always right on the edge of it, close enough to be involved,
just far enough to deny anything. I decided to test him. That afternoon, I turned my TV up a little louder than usual and started talking out loud. To myself. Except I wasn't really talking to myself. I made a sandwich in the kitchen and said, "Man, I can't stand when people borrow stuff and don't return it." I walked around the living room and said, "I should really start going to bed earlier, like 11 o'clock sharp, no more late nights." I sat on the couch, opened my laptop, and said, "I think I'm going to start leaving my phone on the counter at night, face down, on airplane mode." Just random, specific little things. Stuff that would be obvious if someone repeated them back to me. I waited. Nothing happened. Around 5, there was a knock at my door. Not the wall, the actual door. I flinched, then took a breath and opened it. Aaron was standing there, hands in the pockets of his hoodie. "Hey," he said, "haven't seen you today. Everything good?" "Yeah," I said, "just taking a day off." He nodded. "Cool. Hey, random question, man. You got any sugar? I'm out, and I kinda don't feel like going to the store." I almost laughed. It was such a cliché. Neighbor asking for sugar? "Yeah," I said. "Hang on." I went to the kitchen, grabbed the sugar, brought it back. As I handed it to him, he said, "I'll bring it right back. Don't worry. I know you hate when people borrow stuff and don't return it." He smiled. My hand tightened on the bag for half a second. He pulled it gently out of my grip. "See," he said, "I pay attention." I looked at him, really looked. He didn't look creepy. His eyes were calm, almost kind. He didn't seem nervous about anything he was saying. No fidgeting, no shifting. Just this relaxed comfort that made everything worse. "You hear everything through the walls?" I asked quietly. He shrugged. "Not everything, just the good stuff." "What does that mean?" He leaned against the doorframe, studying my face. "You know when you're a kid," he said, "and you press your ear against the door because you want to hear what the adults are saying?" "Yeah," I said slowly. He smiled slightly. "Some people grow out of that. You didn't. Guess not." He tilted his head, like he was listening to something else only he could hear. "How'd you sleep last night?" he asked. "Fine," I lied. "You sure?" he said. "You walked pretty confidently for someone who was asleep." My chest tightened. "You saw that?" "Saw what?" he asked. "The video," I said, "of me walking to the door." He blinked once. "You have cameras?" I stared at him. I couldn't tell if he was messing with me or genuinely curious. "I thought you said you heard everything," I said. "I said I listen," he corrected. "Didn't say I see." He tapped the side of his head. Big difference. He started to turn away, then paused and looked back. "Oh, and for what it's worth," he said, "I think you should keep your phone closer at night. You never know who might pick it up if you leave it on the counter." He smiled that lazy, friendly smile. Then he went back to his apartment and shut the door. I closed mine and locked it, hands shaking. That night, I slept with my phone under my pillow, and for the first time, I dreamed in perfect detail. In the dream, I was sitting exactly where I'd fallen asleep in real life, on the couch, TV off, apartment dark except for the streetlight glow. My phone was on the coffee table, screen up. I watched, frozen, as my front door opened. The chain was off. The deadbolt turned by itself. The handle moved. The door swung inward without a sound. Aaron stepped inside. He moved with this slow, careful confidence, like he'd done it 100 times before. Same gray hoodie, same sweatpants. He closed the door behind him without looking. He walked straight to the bookshelf, stopped right in front of the camera, and smiled at it. It wasn't a creepy horror movie smile. It was the same smile he always gave me in the hallway. Then he reached up and turned the camera off. The red light blinked once, then died. He turned toward the couch, toward me. Except in the dream, I had a body, and I didn't. It was like being in two places at once. I could see him walking toward where I should have been, but I also felt like I was standing behind him, watching his back. He walked past my body on the couch, my sleeping body, and went to the kitchen. He opened drawers. He opened cabinets. He walked down the hallway, opened the bathroom door, checked under the sink, came back out. Then he came to the coffee table. He picked up my phone. He looked at the screen, tapped it a few times, then put it back down. When he straightened, he looked directly at me.
Not the version of me on the couch. Me, standing behind him. His eyes were calm, almost gentle. "You're telling this wrong," he said. I woke up gasping, clutching the couch cushion, heart racing. It was still dark in my apartment. The TV was off. The door was closed. My phone was on the coffee table, face up. I had put it under my pillow before bed. The camera's red light was off. The next morning, I tried to leave. That was my big plan, if you can call it that. Just leave. I threw some clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed my laptop, yanked the camera out of the wall, and stuffed it all together. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. I didn't have anywhere else to go. No backup apartment lined up, no family nearby. But I figured I could get a cheap motel for a few nights and call my mom, ask if I could come stay with her for a bit. I didn't care about the lease, I didn't care about my stuff, I just needed to get out. I opened my door, heart punching my ribs. Aaron's door opened at the exact same time. He stepped out, hoodie on, keys in hand, smile already set like he'd practiced it. "Hey," he said, "heading out?" I clutched the duffel bag strap so tight my fingers hurt. "Yeah." "Weekend trip?" he asked casually. "Something like that." He glanced at the bag, then at my face. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. "You look tired," he said. "Rough night?" "I'm fine," I said. "You keep saying that," he replied. "You ever notice that? You keep saying you're fine." I didn't know how to answer that. He stepped a little closer, lowering his voice. "You know, if something was wrong," he said, "you could always talk to me. I mean, whether you like it or not, I already know most of it." "Most of what?" I asked. He tilted his head. "How your dad left when you were 10, he said quietly. "How you kept that old hoodie of his until it fell apart. How you still sleep on the side of the bed he used to tuck you into, even though that makes no sense now. How you tell yourself you're used to being alone, but every time the building gets quiet, you turn something on so you don't have to sit in the silence." My throat closed. "I never told you that," I whispered. He smiled, but there was no kindness in it now. "You told someone," he said. "Maybe not out loud, but you told someone." I took a step back into my apartment. I'm leaving." "Where?" he asked. "Away from here." He nodded slowly, like he was really thinking about it. "You could," he said. "You could run, get a motel, crash at your mom's, start over somewhere else. New building, new neighbors." He paused. "But here's the thing, Daniel." He leaned slightly, like he didn't want the hallway to hear. "You're not just scared of this building," he said. "You're scared of being watched. You're scared of someone knowing you better than you know yourself. And that doesn't live in the walls. That lives in you." I shook my head. "You don't know me." He smiled that same relaxed smile. "I know what time you cry," he said. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd throw up. "I don't." 2:43 a.m., he said softly. "Last Tuesday. You woke up from another dream and you started crying. Quiet, into your pillow, like you didn't want anyone to hear. But I did. The whole building probably did. These walls, they drink it in." I couldn't breathe. He watched me, almost curious, like he was waiting to see what I'd do. "I'm not staying here," I said finally, voice shaking. I don't care what you think you know. I'm not staying." He stepped back, raising his hands like he was saying, "Hey, no problem." "Okay," he said. "Go ahead, leave." He walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned. "Oh," he added, almost as an afterthought, "if you do go, don't forget your phone." I looked down. My hand was empty. I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter. Something told me not to go back for it. But I did. Of course I did. I walked back into my apartment, heart in my throat, leaving the door open behind me. The kitchen felt colder somehow. The whole place did, like someone had opened a window I couldn't see. My phone was on the counter, screen up. There were 3 new notifications. Unknown number, 1 new message. Email, 1 new login alert. Camera app, device online. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. The text was from a number I didn't recognize. It had no name, just the number. The message read, "Don't tell it the ending this time." There was no previous conversation, no context. I opened the email. It was one of those new login from device alerts. It listed my city, approximate location, time, 3:17 a.m. My head spun. I opened the camera app. The red dot that had been off last night was back on. The camera was online again. I clicked the live view. The image popped up. It was my living room, empty. The front door closed. Then, slowly, like someone was remembering what happened in reverse, the door handle turned. The door opened, and Aaron stepped inside. Not in real life, on the screen. Except, he wasn't moving like a normal person. He was moving backward, like the clip was being played in reverse. He walked backward from the middle of the room to the door. His hand lifted off the handle. The door closed behind him. I checked the corner of the screen. Live. It said live. My chest felt like it was going to cave in. The view shifted. The camera angle tilted, like someone had touched it. For a second, the image flickered. Then I was looking at myself, standing in the kitchen, holding the phone, watching the camera. The me on the screen and the me holding the phone were in the exact same position, same clothes, same expression. Except one thing. The me on the screen was smiling. Slowly, too slowly, like someone dragging a file across a screen. My actual face was frozen, but the version of me in the feed was steadily stretching its mouth into this wide, unnatural grin. Then the feed went black. Connection lost. Something moved in the hallway behind me. I spun around. The hallway was empty. The front door was still open. Aaron was gone. I dropped the bag. I don't know why. It was like my brain couldn't hold on to the idea of leaving anymore. Like every time I tried to picture myself walking down the stairs and out of the building, that image got blurred and overwritten with something else. Not running, staying, sitting, watching, listening. I walked to the front door and shut it slowly. And as soon as it clicked closed, I felt it. This pressure around the apartment, like the air had leaned in closer, like the walls had taken a deep breath. There was a knock on the wall, Mrs. Carter's side. 3 soft taps. I pressed my hand against it. "Hello?" I whispered. No answer. Then, faintly, through layers of plaster and paint and time, I heard my own voice, laughing. Not mean, not scared, just laughing, like I was watching something funny. I yanked my hand back. Another knock, this time from Aaron's wall. Same rhythm, 3 taps. I stood in the center of the living room, turning slowly, eyes on the walls, then the ceiling, then the floor. A thought came to me, sudden and horrifying. What if it wasn't Aaron? What if it was never just Aaron? What if this building didn't need cameras or microphones because it had something better? People. People who listened, people who watched, people who repeated what they heard back to you until you couldn't tell what was yours anymore. People who became part of the walls. I went to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. As I passed the mirror, I caught my reflection. For a second, it didn't match. My body stopped, but the reflection took one extra step. Just one. Then it was normal again. I stared. My reflection stared back. "You're telling this wrong," it said. My lips didn't move. I stumbled back, hitting the doorframe. I blinked hard. The reflection was just me again. Pale, dark circles under my eyes, toothbrush still in the cup behind me, nothing weird. I turned away, heart going 100 miles an hour. From the living room, through the thin wall, Aaron's voice came, calm and amused. "You still here, Daniel?" I didn't answer. "You know what I like about you," he continued. "You're honest, at least with yourself. You know this isn't about me or Mr. Patel. Or some lady in 4C. This is about you. You can move apartments, you can move states, but you still gotta live with yourself." He chuckled softly. "And the version of you that wakes up at 3:17 and checks the door," he said, "he's not going anywhere." I walked back to the living room slowly. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, not even sure if I was talking to him or the walls or whatever else was listening. Silence for a moment. Then, through the wall, in that calm, almost kind voice, "You moved in." So here's where this story should end. With me packing my stuff again, with me walking out for real this time, with some neat little lesson about listening to your gut, or never ignoring red flags, or getting cameras for your apartment. But that's not what happened. What happened is this. I stayed, at least for a while. Days blurred, nights got longer. I started talking to myself more, sometimes on purpose, sometimes without realizing it. I'd be making dinner and suddenly hear myself say something like, "He's not behind the wall, he is the wall," and not remember thinking it first. I stopped checking the camera app. Every time I opened it, it either showed a live feed of an empty room that felt wrong, a black screen with "device in use" on it, or me looking at the camera, smiling just a second before I actually did. The line between dream and waking got thin. Sometimes I'd wake up with my ear pressed to the wall, listening to my own voice. Sometimes I'd jolt awake standing by the front door with my hand on the chain, like I'd been about to open it, or close it, or maybe just test if it was real. I saw Mrs. Carter once more, in a dream. She was sitting on my couch, hands folded in her lap, staring at the TV, which was off. "You stayed too long," she said, without looking at me. "How long is too long?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "Long enough that the building learns your story." "What does it do with it?" I said. She looked at me then, eyes sharp and clear. "It tells it back to you," she said, "over and over, until you forget what actually happened." When I woke up, there was a note on my coffee table. Same sloppy, all-caps handwriting as the chair note. "You're getting better at this." You're probably wondering how I got out, because obviously if you're hearing this, I left at some point. I'm not sitting in that apartment right now, pressed against the wall, talking to myself. At least, that's what you're assuming. One night, it might have been a Tuesday or a Friday, time was weird by then, I got a text from my mom. It was simple. "When are you coming home?" I stared at the message for a long time. When was the last time I'd seen her? Before I moved, before the building, before Aaron, before everything got noisy. I typed back with shaking hands. "Soon." I hit send.
In the wall, I heard a soft chuckle. "You won't last," Aaron said. "You'll miss me. You'll miss us." "I'll forget you," I said, surprising myself. "You don't forget places like this," he replied. "I forgot plenty before," I said. "I can forget this too." Silence. For the first time since I'd moved in, I didn't hear anything through the walls for the rest of the night. No humming, no TV, no footsteps. Just quiet. Real quiet. I packed the next morning. Not a panicked rush, just this weird calm. I left the camera on the shelf. I left the cheap desk chair. I left the dent in the wall where I'd hit it with my shoulder that first night. I opened my front door. Aaron's door stayed closed. I stood there a moment, my bag on my shoulder, waiting. Nothing. No doors opening, no voices, no knocks. Just that stale apartment hallway smell. I walked. All the way down. Every step felt like I was pushing through thick air. At the second floor landing, I heard something. From one of the doors. A low, familiar voice, muffled through the wall, telling a story. I swear what I'm about to tell you actually happened. My own voice. I recognized the way I started, the way I always start when I tell this story. I froze. I almost went back up. Almost put my ear to the door to see which unit it was coming from. Almost. Instead, I kept going. Lobby, front door, street, fresh air. I stood on the sidewalk, staring up at the building. Fourth floor windows, blank and ordinary. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. New message. I lifted it slowly. The text said, "Good luck telling it different this time." I deleted the message. Then I blocked the number. Then I turned my phone off. So, here we are. You're listening to me tell this story, or reading it, or hearing it in your head later when you're lying alone in your room, staring at your own walls. Maybe you're thinking, why didn't you call the cops? Or, why didn't you sue the landlord? Or, why the hell would you stay that long? Those are fair questions. The real answer is simple and stupid. Part of me didn't want to know how much of it was real. Because if the cops came and found hidden speakers in the walls, or cameras, or some crawl space where Aaron had been standing listening to me for hours, that would mean my worst fears were right. And if they came and found nothing, that would be worse. Because then everything I heard, everything I saw, everything I felt would be mine. All mine. No building, no neighbor, just my own brain. So instead, I left. I moved back home for a while, stayed with my mom, got a new job in a different city, found a new apartment when I was ready. One with thick walls. One where I don't talk to my neighbors. One where I sleep with a fan on, not because I like the noise, but because I need something to drown out the idea that someone could be listening. Sometimes, late at night, I'll hear a faint knock. 3 soft taps. On the wall next to my bed. I tell myself it's the pipes, or the building settling, or my imagination. I don't press my ear against it. I don't talk back. But I keep telling this story, over and over, to friends, to coworkers, to strangers online, and now to you. People ask, do you think he followed you? They're picturing Aaron, the hoodie, the sweatpants, the sleepy smile. They're asking if I think he physically found my new address, moved in next door, started listening again. That's not what scares me. What scares me is this. Sometimes when I start telling the story, I notice I skip parts, important parts. Sometimes I forget Mrs. Carter completely until halfway through, and then I'm like, oh right, there was this woman, and I can't remember her face clearly. Sometimes the note about the chair said something different. Sometimes, in my memory, the video of the chain lifting doesn't show me at all. And every time I change something,
Every time the story slips 1 inch away from what actually happened, I feel this gentle pressure in the air around me, like something leaning in, listening, smiling, happy that I'm getting a little worse at telling the truth. So here's the question you've got to ask yourself now. Are you hearing this the way it actually happened? Or are you hearing the version the neighbor wants you to remember? And if you get up tonight, when it's quiet, when the building is asleep, and you walk to the wall and press your ear against it, just make sure the voice you hear on the other side is yours.